4 so far. Any ideas what might be not important and not urgent?
Forwarding joke emails.
That a lot of people spend a significant amount of time in quadrant 1. And for escape, this is another one I'm going to put on there. TV, whoops. Escape from quadrant 1 is generally hiding in quadrant 4. Is there any procrastinators in the room? I know that you live here. You live in this quadrant. A lot of people will hide in quadrant 4. How many times have we had that task that we know we have to do, but all of a sudden it can drop to the bottom of the list and the bottom of the list, and even the laundry looks appealing, the ironing looks appealing, anything looks appealing before you do it. That's the stuff we tend to do in quadrant 4. We tend to hide in here. Quadrant 3 is very often, and this one nails it, and this is why I'm happy just to leave this one item in here. It's demands from other people. Quadrant 3 is very often an area of our lives where we spend time based on other people's expectations. Generally people pleasers. So very often, can you pick my kid up? I'm really desperate. Okay. We'll very often give in to those. This is an area where we spend a lot of time without necessarily realizing it. And a lot of the reason for that is because we don't know how to say no. We don't like to say no. So again, a lot of our time is spent in urgent and important. An area where we spend very little time is quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but it is important. So if we're not going to the gym, if we're not going to the chiropractor, if we're not getting regular exercise, if we're not getting good sleep, how are we going to function as an individual? Well, it's pretty safe to say we're not going to be very healthy, we're not going to function very well. But how many of us proactively, and this is really what this is being proactive, how many of us proactively take care of our health? This is where we can actually create the most time. So on the face of it, this would be an area where we might think, you know what, I don't have time to work in that area. I don't have time to plan my week. I don't have time to plan my day. I don't have time to sit down with a calendar and figure out, what's what and what's going to fit where. I don't have time to plan out how I'm going to pay my bills. Those are the people that are very reactive and they live their lives in quadrant 1 because everything is urgent. Oh, I got the final demand. My water's going to get cut off. I forgot to pay the bill. Where the heck is the bill? I don't know. It's in that pile of paper somewhere. Quadrant 2, if we can put a little bit of planning and a little bit of forethought into our day, this is where we can gain the most time. So as I said, it does seem contrary. Stop, spend some time in here, and you will make more time in your day. You'll spend less time firefighting, less time dealing with urgent issues and urgent demands. Because a lot of the time, the urgent issues we create because we haven't planned, because we haven't put a little bit of forethought in. The not important and urgent, this is a good one for learning how to say no. And that's something that we can help you with. Because if you can negotiate here and negotiate effectively, you can actually manage your time more effectively. And I challenge everybody that we can all make more time here. And really review where you spend your time currently. And be honest, because quite honest, I think most people do fall into 1 and 4. And that's okay. That's what this is about. It's about making a shift. And think about where you want to be spending your time. You will eventually find that you minimize the amount of issues that arise in here. You'll be able to negotiate more effectively in here, and that's what I say, learning to say no. And you'll find yourself spending less time hiding in quadrant 4. Because instead of sitting on the couch and watching the TV, you might just figure out that, hey, going to the gym is actually fun. Walking the dog is actually fun. And again, that's working on building up your health too. The key thing is to seek out help and be committed. You can spend your life in here unless you choose not to. We all know people that will constantly live their lives in a state of chaos, in a state of urgency. People choose to live there. Choose to live somewhere else. Choose to live somewhere where life's a little smoother.
So what's the best way for a person, like there's a lot of information, there's a lot of stuff to do there.
Yeah.
The person knows that they're doing a lot of stuff in quadrant 1. What's the best way to start shifting to, say, quadrant 2, or to start that transformation?
And one of the first things I would suggest is it within your span of control or not? Is this something that is outside of your control? We spend a lot of time and energy and effort, quite frankly, obsessing over things that we have no control over. I think very often we will take on responsibility where we really aren't accountable for it. So it's really not our job, but we take it on because we either think that, well, if we don't, nobody else is going to do it, or they won't do it right. I think the other piece too is, unplanned calls and emails. One thing that I did, I used to have that little pop-up that came in the corner of your screen that gave you a little teaser as to what email had just come in. I was an addict. Whenever it popped, I had to look at it. So I'd click open my email. So I'd stop what I was doing and I would open that email. And I'd get distracted. And then I'd go back to what I was doing. But then it took me 5 minutes to figure out, well, where was I? And by then, bing, another little email would come. And I'd be like, oh, I gotta look at that one. So for me, something like just turning that function off was great. So now I have a policy whereby I check my email first thing in the morning, I check it around lunchtime, and I check it late in the afternoon. So you set those priorities, you set those boundaries. I think that's a key piece too. And that is really, again, what comes into quadrant 3 is setting those boundaries. So sometimes even something as simple as, you know what, I have this, and this to do. I can do that, but I'm going to need to negotiate extra time on this one, or I'm going to need to drop a project, or can I assign it to somebody else? What's your deadline? So there we go. I'm done.